So,
Oh, he's trying not to laugh already.
unfortunately, Hannah has she's still in the custody of the Sheriff of Nottingham. We're doing a podcast for her life. Doing a Robin Hood Resistance summer to get her free. So this is our second episode in the Robin Hood series. This is Not My Fantasy, the podcast about fantasy films and the lore that inspired them. I'm Cullen. And I'm here with Twitch streamer Hobz. Don't be that's who you
Hello.
are. Don't be ashamed.
Hello, hello.
And friend of the podcast, one of the first guests we ever record with,
Ooh.
back for round two, Krizabeth.
Hello.
You may remember her from the Book of Life episode, which was the second episode we recorded, third released. So you were our first guest.
Wow, that was an
Yeah.
honor. I'm glad to be back.
Glad to be back. Glad to have you. And we're here talking about uh a movie, a moving picture, Robin Hood from 2018, starring Taran Edgerton. Uh and this is our part two of our Robin Hood series. Now, have any of you seen had any of you seen this movie before we're recording this episode?
No, I haven't at least.
I saw like hundreds of trailers about it. You know, I feel like they marketed the hell out of that movie because I feel like I've seen it everywhere, but I just didn't want to watch a Robin Hood movie.
2018? Was it marketed or where was I? Because I don't even remember like hearing
I
about this movie.
I just saw like in trailers, like billboards. Like I feel like they were pushing the movie heavy, but I don't know if a lot of people want to go see it.
Yeah, I did see this in theaters when it came out. I saw it with my friend John. Shout out to the Bionicle episode. And I my response was kind of like I couldn't tell if I liked or hated the aesthetic of it. I was like, I like that it really commits, but I was also like, but do I also hate that? But I've also seen The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, so in a way, I had also seen this movie before. Um, I'm going to say this is the most heterosexual movie we've watched on this podcast. Um, so I mean, two of my top experts in heterosexuality here with
What?
me. Well, just this movie has everything. It has a disenfranchised veteran, a pining girlfriend with smoky eye, training montages, having to hide things from a woman, effeminate villains, a kind of cool villain whose issues stem from his insecurity, but that really adds nothing to the plot. A beta cuck love rival turned villain because he wasn't macho enough, and a deep lack of understanding about the world it seeks to depict. So that's kind of like I was like, this is it's like someone was like, we want you to do they're like Batman and Robin Hood are kind of the same. Let's do Dark Knight, Gotham, but Robin Hood. Because it feels like very similar to a lot of those movies, like 2010s, like action movie cliches. Um,
I mean, I think like if I'm thinking of like Dark Knight and stuff, that movie was one of my favorites during that time.
yeah.
When
And
I
it
was
did super
watching
well. Yeah,
when I was watching Robin Hood, I felt like this could have been a show on the CW or something like that. So I don't know. I wouldn't compare just because I really like those Batman movies and this movie was good. Like I think it locked me in, but yeah, there was a lot of missing pieces and the slow-mo fight scenes. I was like, let's get on with it.
I think this almost would have been better as a CW
Yeah, probably.
series.
Because it reminded me of Arrow. Have you all seen Arrow? It was on the CW. It reminded
Yeah.
me of that. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, it was the same thing to me. Yeah, I think I thought I was watching Batman Begins, but back in the old times, I felt like it was honestly the same thing. I couldn't really. Well, obviously you can spot the obvious differences, but you could kind of see how copy and paste a lot of parts were.
Yeah, you could see what they wanted it to be like, what like that those movies, and those were very successful movies.
Hmm.
But maybe, yeah, maybe a CW format would have been better. So this is the directorial debut of Otto Bathurst, who had done and continues to do a lot of TV directing, with a story by Ben Chandler and David James Kelly. It stars Taron Egerton, from Kingsman, The Gorilla and Sing, Rocket Man. He's Robin Hood. We have Eve Houston as Maid Marian, the great Jamie Foxx as Little John, Tim Minchin as Friar Tuck, uh, Paul Anderson as Guy Gisborne, Jamie Dornan, Fifty Shades, as Will Scarlet, and Murray Abraham as the Cardinal, and Ben Mendelsohn as the Sheriff of Nottingham. It had a budget of 100 million, but the box office was 86.5 million.
Damn.
It was a big bomb. And Taron Egerton said this was not the movie I signed up for.
What did he sign up for then?
That's what I want to know. Like, so I wonder, was it the studio pushing it to be like, oh, we see a lot of similarities. You're like fading into the mist, Hobz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your camera to focus.
Oh my Lord.
So the lore that we're going to talk about, I'm reading, I know, it's crazy. I'm reading J.C. Holt. Oh, yeah. Robin Hood. And this is the written by a professor of medieval history at Cambridge, but he was a historical advisor for the 1991 Robin Hood, which we will be covering later. Um, so I'm learning. I went to my local library, uh, hit up the Robin Hood section, and found some good stuff. Um, This movie isn't really that concerned with historical accuracy. So I feel like it's unfair to judge it on that. Like, they obviously that's not what they're going for, but I do want to give some context as to like what the Crusades are, and then just we're gonna talk about like some of the oldest versions of Robin Hood that we have, before we like look at the movie in the context of all that came before it. In the like we talked about, we've done the Disney Robin Hood, and we talked about Reign of the Fox, and we met some of the Robin Hood tropes. But like, let's explore like as we go through these movies, like how the story evolved. But the Crusades, real quick, the huge complicated topic. I'm doing like the lightest explanation. There were a series of wars essentially started or called for by the Pope to support the Byzantine Emperor, and later just for conquest against Muslim Turks to reclaim the Holy Land, being like modern day, like Palestine, Jerusalem. Several crusaders founded like kingdoms there, and this lasted roughly from 1095 to 1251, and in 1302, the Holy Land, as they called it, was permanently lost by European powers. The vast majority of these wars were failures, and overall, it was a big L for Western Europe. The Third Crusade featured Richard the Lionheart, and he's often the king in Robin Hood movies. The Crusades, I think, are often centralized in narratives of Christian violence because it's really easy to other the Christians who enacted it, because they're like medieval, they're old fashioned, they're Catholic, and no one today really benefits from the Crusades. And the Muslim world actually looked at the Crusades as kind of like, wow, you really took that L, like you're dumb. Like what, like you really thought you were going off there, and like we won. Um, I think people, I just in my experience, people like to talk about the Crusades because like colonialism. is like the real, to me, like symbol of Christian guilt, or like we all, it affected our world much more deeply than the Crusades, and Christians of all kinds of denominations participated and still benefited from it now. Um, but they'd much rather talk about the Crusades because it's easy to be like, wow, the Crusades were bad, because like nobody's like benefiting from that now. Except like there's alt-right people who love the Crusades and are very Islamophobic, or I'd say hateful, because you're not scared, you just hate people. But that's kind of where the Crusades sit in modern pop culture and their like historical context. Very complicated, and I'm not really an expert in that, because I kind of am like, wow, that was dumb. But I mean, there is some interesting stuff, you know, but I'm not an expert. And then I do want to touch on what a yeoman is, because I first knew what that was from a Lord of the Rings video game, but apparently it was a class of people between peasants and the gentry, like a freeborn person. And yeoman archers were a big deal in the Hundred Years' War, which is the war that Joan of Arc was in. Um, and so the yeomen would pick off the French noble knights because they were riding in on horses, and then the archers would shoot them down. Uh, Archery in general, this is where it's relevant to this movie. Nobles didn't use bow and arrows. Typically, that was considered like a lower class weapon because you weren't fighting face to face. Um, Robin Hood, what's this guy's deal? Uh, he's like depending on the version, he's a noble, he's an outlaw, he's a yeoman. What would you say if someone's like, who's Robin Hood? What would you say to that?
He's
Yeah.
Hawkeye.
He's Hawkeye.
Nah, well, he I haven't really followed the story of Robin Hood so heavily. Like I've only seen the Kevin Costner movie. I know there's a Robin Hood movie with a fox in it with Disney. But he's just the guy that gives, to the poor. He tries to fuck over the rich people as much as he can, and he just tries to help them out. So, you know, pretty black and white for me for him.
What would you say, Krizabeth?
What do I think about Robin Hood in general?
Yeah, if someone's like, who's Robin Hood? And you're explaining it to someone who doesn't really know the deal.
Okay, so my historical is just this film. So I would say similar to what Hobie said, like he's like yeah, this sounds so bad. Edit this out. He's just he's just like a guy. I think he's just like a guy who kind of battles. Like I think he wants to be for the people, but at the same time, there's all like this political stuff at that time. Um, and so I think he just wants to help before the people, I think. But I don't know because at the same time he was very much involved. Like I think a lot of his motives were for the girl
Yeah.
in the film. So it felt like some of the things he was doing for the people was because he heard her say like if only he gave coins to the poor or like to the
Yeah.
people and then he was like, well, guess I'm going to give them all coins now.
Yeah.
Um so I don't know. It's hard to say like what he is, but I think he's just like a guy who's trying to do good, but is heavily influenced by his love interest.
That's a good analysis. I mean, generally, that is what people kind of, if you ask who Robin Hood is, they say he fights for the people, he robs from the rich to give to
Hmm.
the poor. And like his exact origins, what he does are kind of nebulous depending on the version, which is true throughout folklore. There's also, there's Little John's his main man. There are other recurring characters in the band of merry men, like Much the Miller's son. I don't really know who that is, but he comes up a lot. Will Scarlet, that's a guy. Friar Tuck, that's a rebel priest who likes to party. Alan Adale is a minstrel that's referenced. He usually has the Sheriff of Nottingham and the Guy of Gisborne as his ops, and then Maid Marian is his girlfriend. And then Prince John and King Richard Plantagenet, the sons of medieval girl boss Eleanor of Aquitaine, often make an appearance, but not always. But Robin Hood is actually, it's a pretty old legend. It was incredibly popular. but not one people would write down. So our earliest references are like fragmented poems and plays. But the oldest reference to Robin Hood is in the text of Piers Plowman in 1377. So it implies that like someone knew all the songs of Robin Hood. So it implies that Robin Hood was already like a popular subject by then. So before people were writing it down. So it's been around a long time. And it's very flexible and adaptable to like whatever you kind of want to portray. But one of the oldest big versions of Robin Hood was called the Jest of Robin Hood. It was an epic poem composed of several different editions from roughly 1492 to 1515. But they say the single source it's based off of, because there's different variants, could be as old as 1400. And it's about a knight like Robin Hood is in the forest. He's like, I want somebody to come for dinner. And so his buddies, Little John, Much the Miller's Son, and Will go out to find someone to like kind of kidnap and take to dinner. And it's this night, and they're like, we're gonna rob you. And he's like, I'm broke. And they're like, actually, wow, you are broke. And you were honest about that. And he's like, yeah, my son killed somebody jousting, and I need to like pay his bail to the abbot of St. Mary's. And Robin Hood is like, I'll give you the money. The Virgin Mary, she's has my back. She's gonna make sure we're repaid. And so he's able to like free his son, and the abbot is pissed. So then they send this monk to collect the debt. But Robin Hood also wants someone to come for dinner again. So then they kidnap the monk, and he lies and is like, I don't have any money on me. And they're like, actually, you're rich. And they rob him. And Robin Hood says, the Virgin Mary is the truest woman I have ever found. And she pays. He's like, because now we have twice as much as like the money we loaned out. So she like repaid them. And then it kind of like it goes in a new direction. Little John wins an archery contest. He starts working for the sheriff as a double agent. They capture the sheriff, make him eat on his own stolen plates, and then they tie him to a tree until he promises never to hurt them. Um, and then Robin Hood then wins another archery contest. The sheriff sends his men after them. They get the knight that they helps them. The king is mad about it, and he's mad that they're killing his deer because it was a crime to poach the king's deer. So he disguises as a monk, gets kidnapped for dinner by Robin Hood, and then outfights them. And he's like, actually, I'm King Edward. And they all become his servants and they get pardoned. But then Robin Hood is bored working for the king. He's like, this is boring. I want to be back in the trees. So he goes back to his hometown of Barnesdale and lives in the Greenwood. But he's betrayed when he goes to get his blood leached by his cousin, the Prioress of Kirkless, and her secret lover, Sir Roger. So they kill him for some reason. And so this poem is like, if you look at the structure, it's like someone took different stories and kind of like tried to clump them together into one cohesive narrative because it'll shift locations. Like sometimes they're in Barnesdale, sometimes they're in Nottingham. Like the sheriff's characterization, sometimes he's goofy, sometimes he's scary. So it's kind of a mess. There's a few other fragmented manuscripts, like there's one from 1475 that retells the death of Robin Hood, similar to this poem. And there's one from 1450 that's for sure the oldest. And it's opens with talking about the Greenwood in May because Robin Hood became associated with May Day as like a spring festival and like the forest. And people think maybe that's where like Maid Marian and like May kind of comes in. Or that like, well, we'll talk about her in a minute. But in this story, Robin Hood goes to church uh, with Little John as his only helper, but they fight over a bet because Little John wins the bet and then Robin Hood won't pay up. So Little John doesn't come with him to church and Robin Hood gets captured. And Little John is like, it's okay, the Virgin Mary has this. And then they capture this monk and his page who are trying to get the news of Robin Hood being arrested to the king. So they kill them and take the letter to the king. And the king's like, oh, I'm going to pardon you all. Then they get the sheriff drunk and trick the jailer by being like, oh my gosh, Robin Hood escaped. And the jailer's like, what? And lets them in and they kill him. Um, and they return to Sherwood Forest. And Little John is like, I'm not going to take the promotion because I shouldn't have been mad about losing that bet. And then the king is also like, it's okay, sheriff, you're fine. So that's kind of it's like a goofier version. So it's like the tone will change depending on the version. Like there's a fragmented version of Robin Hood versus the Guy of Gisborne, where Little John Will Scarlet captured by the sheriff. Robin fights Guy of Gisborne, who's this mercenary, and he's losing. And he's like, Virgin Mary, give me strength. And then it does, and he kills the Guy of Gisborne and disfigures his corpse. Like, it's just kind of like they're like, yeah, we're the heroes, and they're just like, oh, we murdered this guy. And then he disguises himself as Guy of Gisborne to get into town and free his friends. And there's a portion of a play version of this from 1475. And the last one that is like one of the old ones that kind of all our Robin Hood legends descend from that we have written is Robin Hood and the Potter from 1503. It's this Potter is a really good fighter, and when Robin Hood is trying to rob him, he challenges him to a quarterstaff versus sword duel, and the Potter wins. And then Hood is like, "Wow, like you're legit. Let's trade clothes and like trade places for the day." So comes in as the potter, and everyone wants to buy the pots, but he gives the last and best pot to the sheriff's wife, and she invites them to dinner. And then at dinner, this somehow becomes an archery contest because these people are addicted to doing archery contests. And he wins, and he's really good. So the sheriff is like, "Oh, do you know Robin Hood?" And he's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Take me to Robin Hood." And they do, but it's obviously a trap because it's Robin Hood, and he's disguised as the Potter. So they take him into the woods, blow the horn, and they rob the sheriff. But they're like, "We're gonna give you a beautiful white horse for your wife and send you back because you're lucky that like your wife is so generous, or it would be worse for you." And then he repays the Potter for all the pots he sold. So those are all like the oldest versions of Robin Hood that we have. So he's up to hijinks, but a lot of things that we associate with Robin Hood now aren't quite there. Like Maid Marian, like potentially it comes from the association with May or the association with the Virgin Mary or Our Lady. She's referenced a lot, but he has no love interest or girlfriend in these stories. And the concept of we don't rob from the or like we rob from the rich and give to the poor isn't really there. Robin Hood says, well, we don't rob peasants and farm workers. We leave them alone. And we don't mess with yeomen, knights, or squires, even though knights and squires are upper class. But they say bishops and archbishops and the sheriff, you should rob. So it's less of a rich versus poor and more of like people we don't like, people we do, and there's no like giving aspect. But I'm excited to learn and discover how that becomes like the most famous part of the story. Because if you think of Robin Hood, okay, he robs from the rich and he gives to the poor. That's like the basic that's what he always does in every movie I've seen. Um, but what I've learned from doing this series is I actually don't like sometimes we talk about a story on this podcast and I know the history behind it, but I don't really know a lot about Robin Hood aside from like the movies I've seen.
Mhm.
Um, but speaking of movies I've seen, let's talk about the plot of this one. This is one of my favorite things. It opens where it's like the story you know is dumb and wrong. And I'm like, well then why am I watching this? Like don't like obviously I like Robin Hood. That's why I bought a ticket and sat my ass down to watch Robin Hood. Don't tell me it's dumb. Like there's movies that do that. Like, this is not the Pinocchio you
Yeah.
know. And you're like, well, I came for Pinocchio. So
Yeah. It's also like how many ways can you change the story?
yeah. Because this is actually very similar to a lot of other Robin Hoods. It's
Yeah.
very aesthetically different.
Hmm.
Um, but in this one, Marian starts out as a thief. And she instantly gets caught by Robin Hood and is like, I'm, trying to rescue a horse or trying to free a horse because this plowman lost his horse and like the rich guy in the manor doesn't need his horse. So she's like a social activist. Um, and he's like, "Oh, I'm the rich prick who lives in this manor." And my first thought is beautiful gowns. I love his fits in this movie. Like honestly, that's it's like it's very like Assassin's Creed core. Um, but like it looks good. Like it's good costume. Like it's not like obviously historically accurate, but like it looks like oh medieval inspired, like Ren Fair, like.
Yeah, I feel like there were literally suits at that point.
Yeah, I think the suits I didn't like, but his like kind of like jumping around stuff,
Ah, yeah, yeah.
and like
Hmm.
what he wore in this scene, I'm like that was slick. Like his outfit specifically, like the sheriff, I'm
Yeah.
like Garbo.
Well, I think like I think that's what confused me in the movie was that there were moments where like the his style was very much like of the time. And then there was a point where he was like he looked normal like he was in 2025. And I was
Yeah.
like, did we jump to the future? I'm confused. But yeah, it did definitely gave beautiful gowns.
I think they were literally joggers when he was wearing.
I I
I've
think
seen those.
yeah, that thing is like you can buy that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that works. Like I think there were actually a lot of like I think him specifically, I'm like, okay, it's like seems medieval enough. I think there were times like I think especially like the women's clothes seemed like so far off or like the suits, I was like it just needed to be a little bit more like medieval. And
Hmm.
so then it's like, oh, it's stylized. Like I knew it was supposed to be stylized, but it was like so over the top that I feel like my big thing with this movie is I think it thinks I'm too dumb to understand how the relevance a story of Robin Hood might have to today. So they try and like simplify it and modernize it and spell it out so much to make sure I get the point. But I'm like, I'm not stupid. Like I can understand how robbing the rich to feed the poor would have class implications that are relevant today. Like
Yeah.
there's like a some stories are evergreen. And I think people realize that, but they want to like push too hard, be like, see, wow, this is really relevant right now. And you're like, oh, I know, but like, just tell me the story and like
Yeah.
let people put it together. That's at least my opinion. But now that Robin and Marian they met, they all they do kind of all day, I think now is they frolic in the manor. He
Yeah, just
like,
like make out all day. Like
yeah,
what?
I see them do like the thing where she holds on to like the bow and he like twists her with the bow. Like this is what you do all day.
Yeah.
Your
I
makeout.
honestly, I honestly thought because of how she was, they were gonna go out and start helping people in general. I thought they were gonna do that, but then it just kind of just went to, oh, we're just here in the manor now. I'm rich now.
Yeah.
So it was like it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be like, oh, now we're helping everybody. But she's like, no, I'm rich. Yeah, that is a good. She gives like the girlfriend in a movie that's gonna die,
Hmm.
like where it's like, my dead wife, where they like go back and she's like in the white sheets and she's like, Christopher, come, like, um, but he gets a draft notice for the Crusades. And so he's off on the Crusades. He leaves her the key to the manor and he goes off to be a crusader. And I describe their version of the Crusades as Assassin's Creed War in Iraq. Uh, like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like it's they're like they have their bow and arrows and they're playing like Call of Duty almost
Yeah.
like
It did give that vibe, yeah.
Yeah.
and that does I get it, but I'm also like again, this movie isn't trying to be historical, but I'm like, nobility didn't fight with arrows, and that's not how you fought with arrows. Like you didn't like sneak around a city, like it was that's just and like do little missions like that. Like this isn't 2018, like this is the Crusades. Like that's not how they
Hmm.
fought. Um, but it is like I do think it's a strong action sequence. I'm not going to say all the action sequences in this movie are winners, but there are some good ones. But yeah, they like fail because their friend gets captured and it's a trap. And then they have to flee the city, but they send in the catapults. But they have like slave camps out in the city, and they have the Muslims that they've conquered or defeated enslaved or they're in chains, and they do call we meet Jimmy Fox's character, they do call him Moor, which is like what they call North Africans back in the day. And Guy Gisborne is just executing people because he feels like it, and Robin is like, you can't just kill people. And I'm like, this can't be the first he's seen of
Hmm.
like war and justice. Um, And I'm calling him Jamie Foxx because we don't know his name yet. So like Jamie Foxx sees his son. Honestly, I think of him as Jamie Foxx in the whole movie. Like
Yeah.
Little John, I'm like, that's Jamie Foxx. Uh he's like, oh, they're gonna behead his son. Um and he's like, no, I'll give you all the information I have. And they're like, not enough. And Robin tries to stop the execution because he's like, that's not right. Um, and he frees a bunch of the people, but it fails. Robin gets shot and kicked out of the military, sent back because he's a noble. He's Robin of Locksley.
Wait, and also, I don't know if this is like a relevant point, but like Jamie Foxx's arm getting chopped off or like
Oh
hand,
yeah,
that part too.
oh yeah, yeah. That he has like this cool silver hand, like silver case later, but yeah, it doesn't come up a lot.
Because I was like, isn't that like a maybe I was thinking too deep into it, but when they chopped off his hand, I was thinking like that's a serious injury. And
Yeah,
then he's just like chained and fine. Like, what was the time frame between when that happened and him being captured? Like, I don't know, that really bothered me because I was like, I don't know, I need to know what
yeah.
medical attention he received.
No,
I think is
he's
I think
hiding.
is I'll go over, go over, go over.
Oh, he's hiding under a ship bleeding. Like,
Yeah.
I think that blade was just so hot it just cauterized it immediately
yeah.
and just did not bleed anymore. You know what's funny? The first thing that I saw when they did that, I looked at the floor to see if like a bunch of blood was dripping. And it
Nothing.
was just like a little bit, yeah, just like a teensy bit. But
Wouldn't it be like
yeah,
gushing?
Yeah,
yeah,
like there's an artery. I think there's like an
yeah.
artery there. So like, I don't know. I thought like and it wasn't like he wasn't in like excruciating pain to me. And I was like, that's not right. I don't know. It just didn't.
You
I don't
know,
know.
for the most part, I think in the beginning, when you get an injury like that, like a bunch of the adrenaline is just pumping, so he probably might have not
Yeah.
Yeah.
felt it. But yeah, he should have definitely felt it a while ago. Because that boat ride probably took I don't know how long, but
Yeah, the mid from where they are to England because they frequently say like Arabia or the Crusaders in
Mhm.
Arabia and the Arabians,
mhm.
but the Crusades were never in Arabia. Like it's a close area, but it's pretty, I mean, close relatively speaking, but like Palestine, Israel, like that part of the world isn't Arabia. And they would call that the Holy Land, you know.
Mhm.
And it's yeah, so it's
I was about to say, how did they get there? But
yeah, boats,
I
horses.
forget. I forget. They probably had compasses and maps and stuff.
So he's sent back. He's a noble, so he's just kind of sent back, and he gets back to his repoed manor. And they're like, he's like, "Where's Marian?" And he goes to find Friar Tuck, and he's like, "Oh, we thought you were dead. Um, but you're still alive. I'm your friend Friar Tuck, who we knew you were friends with before."
That was another thing. But and just so I understand, like it was 4 years from when, so he was drafted and then they're in like the wartime
Yeah,
4 years later.
yeah,
So and then he just like comes back,
yes.
right? Okay.
Um, he's like, "Oh yeah, I did. We had a funeral for you.
Hmm.
You know, Mary moved on." So the poors are now all live in the mines? Question mark. I don't know what those are. And they're like, oh, they came out of Nottingham proper. And then they're later, he's like, oh, I'm annexing the mines into Nottingham. I was like, I don't need your political system to like be historically accurate, really. I just need to be able to understand it. And like feudalism is generally a pretty easy one to do in movies because you just have like a hierarchy of whatever. But I'm like, what are we like? There's Nottingham in the mines, and what is the difference? Like, I think they're trying to do gentrification, but I'm like, you need to explain how this works.
Hmm.
If you're gonna make it a plot point, if it's just like there's poor people and there's rich people, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But if you're gonna have this whole like mine aesthetic. It's just like a video game level. I feel like the
Hmm.
whole world. But they're like, yeah, Marion is now with this soy boy beta cuck called Will, and she just like gives out soup to people. Um, the church that they film in this movie, I looked it up because I was like, that is not a medieval church. Like that's not how those look. It is a 1920s modernist, trigger warning, Krizabeth, French church. And it is a real place. So there is a real place that ugly. But it's filmed there. But so apparently in this world, the sheriff tells us that Nottingham funds the Crusades for the church to keep the Arabians at bay because they're gonna come to England and they're gonna snatch your people up and scare you and be evil. And again, this is very much playing to like modern fears of like foreign invasion and like we have to go to war now, especially like Islamophobia and like Muslim hate. Like we have to go to war to keep the Muslims from taking over. Um, and this was in, Trump's first term, and so like Islamophobia was a big part of his policies at that time. Not to bring that in, but I am bringing it. Not to bring that in, but I am bringing it in. Like that was very relevant. Um, yeah. So we're also have like Will is the voice of the people being like they're overtaxed, you can't tax them more,
Mhm.
like but they're like, no, the church needs this. Um, and so Robin is watching this and he's watching Marian, and so he runs into Jamie Foxx, who uh Robin cannot say his name in Arabic, so he's like, you can just call me Little John. Um, which I'm like, well, there's something to unpack there, but he's like, you fought for my son, I want revenge on these people. You're gonna be my weapon of revenge. You're noble. You can have access to these circles. I'm gonna train you, and you want to get your girl back, right? And like do the right thing. Um, so this is like the Batman Begins training sequence.
Yeah.
And it becomes very Batman. Like in one hand, he's like Robin of Locksley, the Bruce Wayne, like the rich party boy. In the other hand, he's the Hood. And so they do this intense training sequence. He's like firing multiple arrows. He has like a special bow. Um,
It's a street weapon.
his street weapon. Yeah, I was like,
Oh.
what the fuck? That's when I'm like, you think I'm dumb. Like you're trying to like convince me, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm like, you shouldn't have to convince me. I should just see it. No. So with his street arrows, he becomes like a super fast archer. Which there were a lot of archery contests in these old Robin Hood texts that we talked about, but he also fought plenty of times with a sword. But now we're like, no, Robin Hood, bow and arrow only. So his first mission is to like rob the toll bridge, get some money. He gives it to Marian, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I wish you'd give it to the poor people." So he's like, round two, he donates some of what he stole at church for the crusade effort. Um, and Marian is like, "Let's talk," and he's like, "I'm mad at you." She's like, "You were gone for 4 years," and he's like, and then Little John is like, "No, you can't talk to her. She can't know. It's too dangerous." Um, I hate those kind of. It's good, but I don't know. There's something about like the oh she can't know, and then I don't know. It just annoys me because I think I imagined in my head a scene that was like, oh, there's definitely a scene in the movie where she's annoyed with him because she's like, you're back from the war and you're just being rich and palling around. You're not helping anybody. But she never has that scene with him. And I'm like, what's the point of doing that then? Of her
Mhm.
not knowing if you're not going to like use the dramatic conflict of her being like, oh, how could you be friends with the sheriff?
Yeah, I feel like when that one scene when she finally sees him for the first time, I was so confused because she was like, "Oh, hey," It wasn't like, "What the fuck? Why did you just empty that whole?" bag of coins right there. Like it was just, you know, I feel like, especially as someone that would see maybe like another like partner or something like that, kind of, going the wrong path or, doing something they're not supposed to. I mean, you would question it. You would question everything actually. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like it was just so like casual. She did not feel any like ill will towards him about that. So it's like
I also think though, like for movie plot purposes, like had he told her like this is my plan, then because she was working on something on the side with the
Yeah.
priest. So then like, no, that kind of kills that
Yeah.
story piece.
I I do think there's sometimes because I felt this actually in the Disney Robin Hood is that everyone's really because Robin Hood's really like confident and everyone's really chill most of the time. So I have trouble feeling invested because like I'm never scared that like I never watch an action sequence and think he's gonna like be really hurt or something's really bad. Like I don't have that emotional like oh no, like I just know it's all gonna be chill because even like seeing him after she thinks he's dead for 4 years and he's acting strange, she's just like hey, like not like, oh my God, you're alive.
But I think she had to play the part because she has a new man now.
Yeah, but if you saw someone that you thought was like you had a funeral for, not even like, oh my gosh, let's immediately make out, but wouldn't you like be like shocked to see them alive?
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what? I thought his I thought his reaction to her while like being right next to what's his name? Jamie?
yeah, or
Jamie.
Will,
Yeah, Will.
beta
When
cock, yeah.
when he goes off and throws up, I felt like that was a lot more believable. I was like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
but her reaction was like completely like watered down. Like, oh, you're alive. Thank God. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Maybe she knew that he wasn't actually dead.
You think so?
No. Because that would be in the movie then. And that would like she
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten with Will or, um
But she's the original thief.
she's the thief.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess her reaction was kind of weird because I was thinking like I feel like she kind of sensed his presence when she's passing out whatever like
Soup.
soup.
Yeah.
Um when she notices or like sees his back, I think she's kind of like, "Oh, is that who I think it is?" And then the priest confirms it. And
Yeah.
then she's like, I don't know, maybe she's just in shock.
Yeah, I think maybe we should have seen her have a shocked reaction and then get it together to confront him.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I wanted
Yeah.
like some more emotion and conflict
Yeah.
between them. Especially because he's doing stuff that she's like, what? But his next mission is he robs the collection at church, from the creepy monks, question mark, with their like little sleevey things, their anthropology sleeves, and the archdeacon is like, oh, they robbed the church. Sheriff, you got to get this hood person handled because the church can make or break you. Uh, and meanwhile, Robin of Locksley, I guess, is getting in good with the sheriff. He's hanging out with him. He's being fun. They have the young vote. That's what they call him because he's a lord. And then because they're gonna pass like a big beautiful bill or something or a bill, and they're like, oh wait, we need Brett Loxley's vote. He's not dead. So he's bonds with the sheriff because the sheriff is like, I hate the lords. Their dads and the priests used to come to the orphanage and like beat us. And if you cried, you get brandy. But I never cried, but I hate brandy. And I'm like, okay, this is a backstory. Are we gonna do anything with it? Like, does this really change anything?
It was a good one too.
Yeah, it's like, but it's just kind of there. Uh, but Robin's like, I want a seat at the table. Um,
Wasn't it also Little John being like, you need to form that relationship too to like
yeah,
get to where we want to get to?
Hmm.
Yeah, I like this that aspect of it. Even though yeah, it's like Batman, but like I thought it was interesting. I just felt like the sheriff like says this backstory and the story doesn't really use it. It's just kind of there. And like Robin doesn't really even ask or like really work to get it. It's just kind of like, here you go. He's like, oh damn, that sucks.
Hmm.
And he's like, we're gonna get the lords then. Let's hang a bunch of the lords and scare the rest of them. And they're like, ha ha ha. Um, but he's gonna try and rob the vault. He gets shot in this. The vault is a video game level. He gets shot and Little John rips the arrow out, and that shot is one of the clips in our opening sequence of the podcast. Um, but the cardinal is coming from Rome, and there's going to be a party, and they're gonna because the cardinal is mad that the church is losing the money. And so they have a casino. They have casino night. And this is where like the costumes are. I was really like, what's happening with these people? But Will and Marian get like a poor people invite. Like, how do they even have clothes to wear to something like this? And we kind of find out that Will is an aspiring politician who, he wants a seat at the table, and that's why he's the voice of the people. And Guy of Gisborne is here as the new mercenary to find the Hood, because the Hood has become a symbol of the people. He robs the rich, he gives to the poor, and they nail hoods up around the city to be like Team the Hood. So this party is like Marion and Firetruck have this plot so Marion can like get the records. Um, but Robin is like trying to get in with the Cardinal. So he's like, "Oh, do you trust me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know, I've known you since you were a kid." Then he's just like, "Oh, the friar tuck." He like pulls him into the room with the Cardinal, and the sheriff is like, "The friar stole. He's a thief. He stole the keys." And so we have to defrock him. Otherwise, they're like, "Oh, we'll execute him." And he's like, "Oh no, he doesn't want to be executed. Make him not a priest." Uh, I was like, "Wow, way to really like throw your friend under the bus." Like later, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did that." And Fartag's like, "No, I'm free." And I'm like, I hate when they like get let off too easily because it's like he made a plan that was like last minute and like risked this other guy's life. Like I think it's when you have a cocky main character, it's more fun if like that sometimes gets them in trouble.
Hmm.
Because then it's like they gotta know like when it's an advantage and when it's not. Um, but instead, the sheriff is just like, yeah, he's cool. Cardinal, tell him all about our evil plot that we're actually taking the money and giving it to uh the Muslim army, and so we can destroy the English army in the Crusades and take over the kingdom from the king. And this is the first I've heard that there was a king in this movie. Because yeah, it's medieval times, but like everyone kept talking about like the church and the sheriff, and I was like, is there a king? Like I don't remember. Like, how does this government work? And so there is a king and they're trying to overthrow him, and I guess that's bad. But Marion gets these records that are in Arabic about the donations, and she sneaks them off to Will, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy news. And Will's like, I can't read it, and like you stole that? Like you can't steal. And she's like, this is huge news. And it's like, you have to go and return it. This could hurt my career as a beta card, soy boy, whatever. It's just like that's like his whole vibe to me. Like he's just like my career, and like I don't like he's only in it for himself, and she's like, "Ugh, I'm done with you," you know. Uh, so Gisborne is looking for the hood, and so they're like, "We're gonna burn the hood's hood. We're gonna annex the mines and like kill everybody." I was like, this is when I was like, I don't know what's really happening. But Marion is like. Will is like, don't resist. And then Marion is like getting like beat up, and he's just like, no. And then they take her away, and Robin's like, no, we have to save her. So we get this chase scene where he saves her, and then she's like, wait, you're Robin. And he's like, wait, how do you know? And she's like, that disguise is like nothing. And he's like, well, it fooled everyone because it's just like a handkerchief in front of his mouth. He was mask fishing everyone. Uh,
It's similar to like how she was covered up in the beginning. Like it was and her bandana or whatever, it was like clear. Like you
yeah.
could totally see her face.
It's like that when they were selling those like lace masks in the
Yeah.
pandemic, like those clear masks.
I mean, it reminds me of like even in like I think it's The Incredibles or it just any like superhero where they just like have like a covering on their eyes and they're like, I don't know who that is. It's like, come on.
I love it, but for whatever reason, I do actually kind of love when they do that. I'm just like, yep, I accept it, whatever.
Yeah.
But this, she's like, your disguise is bad. And then we have this chase sequence where horses are like running on like wooden planks, and I'm like, I don't think horses like work like that. I think their feet would get stuck. But we get this chase sequence. Little John gets captured. Uh, and they like basically destroy. Wait, no, they just the mines are still sort of around. When do
Mhm.
they destroy the mine? But they like do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So the sheriff, meanwhile, it comes up to capture Little John and is like, oh, you're so brave, but I'm gonna fill you with pig's blood so you can't get to heaven with your false prophet. And he's like, oh, so you don't believe in anything? And he's like, no. And he's like, okay, well, believe that the last thing you're gonna see is my face murdering your ass, and you're gonna wish there was God. Uh, and he's like, oh, well, just like that one scene in Gladiator, your son cried like a little girl before he was killed or whatever. Like your son, and he's like, ugh, I hate you. But he's like, your death is coming, Sheriff. And I'm like, yeah, honestly, yeah, he sucks. But Robin is rallying the people. He's like, you know me as the Hood. I'm actually Robin of Locksley. I'm actually rich, and I'm fighting for you because the sheriff is bad and we have to fight back. And they're funding the Muslim army, and we gotta take the money. So they can't reach. It's gonna be blessed of the church, so we gotta capture it. And Will's like, guys, we gotta flee. And Marian's like, I'm sick of you being a beta. And so he's like, I guess I'll work with you. So they put together this plot to get the money and stop it from being sent overseas. It's a kind of a I do like this sequence. Like I think there's parts of it I really like with the city, and they like knock down the cross, like stop the caravan, and they're like using Molotov cocktails and like explosives that I don't know if they're really historically accurate.
Yeah.
And then the knights have like riot shields, and I'm like, okay, you're obviously referencing the Kendall Jenner Pepsi commercial. Is that Kendall? Was that Kendall or Kylie?
It was Kendall.
With Kendall, yeah. And like, where is she now to end this? To end this fight? And but there's this, yeah, this just this big battle sequence where the money gets like sucked underground and they're taking it back. But then the sheriff is like, get me through the fire. This part sent me. Like they just like use the shields and like clear out the fire. Is Hobie frozen? Oh no. You just like weren't blinking for a second. So I was like,
I was processing information right
you were processing that they use
now.
the metal shields to just walk through fire, like a wall of fire.
You know what? It actually did kind of look cool when they did it. And that what they were like gold, right? Like they looked kind of like yellow at one point, but I think they were the same shields. I think that might have been the
Yeah.
reflection, but I thought that actually looked pretty cool. But I don't know why he was just walking. He should have ran.
So they're sneaking the money out underneath. They Gisborne shoots Robin and Marian kisses him to distract him from, her ripping the arrow out. And Cuck Will sees himself getting cucked right there. And he's like, no. And he like drops the Molotov cocktail and he like lands in the fire. And Harvey dents himself. Uh, but they Robin and Marion spare Gisborne because Robin's like, oh, you spared me back in the Crusades. And it's like, dude was like beheading people. Like you can end this one for sure, you know? Like uh I don't know. But this is such like a honor, power, whatever. I know exactly what they're trying to appeal to with this whole version of Robin Hood. But they're sneaking away, but Robin gets captured. Little John escapes. Uh and they take the Robin Hood to the sheriff and he's like, "Ah, Robin of Locksley, how could you? Uh I'm gonna kill you so bad." And then he's like, "Actually, Sheriff, you'll always be a poor bitch." Like, hey, I don't remember if it's like, "Oh, feel the sting," or like taste the brandy, and he's like, "Oh." And then Little John appears. Was one of the guards in disguise, and he fights off the other guards, and they basically hang the sheriff, like attach him to this metal like incense chandelier, and like hoist him up. Uh, and he's like, "I told you the last thing you'd see before you died was my fucking face." Uh, so R.I.P. Sheriff. Um, and now everyone flees into Sherwood Forest. They're outlaws together. You know, Robin and Marian are just together now. Beta Boy Will, though, he's gonna be the new sheriff. He betrayed all his values. He's working with the sheriff, or he's working with the church and the nobles, and they gotta find Robin Hood. But Robin Hood shoots an arrow into the wanted poster, and it's like, "I missed to steal your girl," and the movie ends.
Honestly, dude, I fucking hated his character so much.
Will,
Yeah.
I mean, me too. Every time I was just like, "Oh,
Yeah. But I think that's the point, right? We're supposed to
yeah,
not like him.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I just hate, I think what made me hate him is I obviously hate when people are like, I'm for the people, but really it's their own like personal gain.
Hmm.
yeah."
Yeah, he's a sellout. He was
Yeah.
like legit a sellout.
Yeah.
All because his girlfriend like kissed somebody who was like hotter and more popular. He's
You know
like,
what?
"You can have her. Go away from me. I'm just burning."
You know what that reminded me of when James Franco walks into Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst kissing in Spider-Man, and then he's just like, and he just goes tells his dad, and then he becomes a new Goblin like later on after everything. So,
Spoilers for Spider-Man.
oh,
No, I've seen that
sorry,
movie.
sorry,
I've
sorry.
seen them just for the listeners.
If you
You had
haven't
your
seen
time.
it,
Like you had
you were just
time.
born.
You were, yeah. Because I'm also like, were they married? That's another thing because like again, I know like the audience like they're appealing to is not obviously like people who are into history. It's like, oh, like he's like a returned veteran, just like so many people here, and he's like a tough white guy with his like girlfriend with smoky eye, and like she's with a beta, but they belong together. Like it's just like I see all the marketable like things going on, but like this is medieval times, and you didn't just like she would be made like that'd be your wife. Like if you're living in a manor with somebody, if you're or well, rich people had mistresses, but I'm like, okay, I thought like her and Will married? Are they just boyfriend girlfriend that didn't really exist at the time?
I mean, I definitely didn't feel like they were married. They were
No.
living in sin for sure.
Yeah, I mean, sin for sure. Um, but yeah, it's just like it's just those little things where it's like I don't expect movies to be super historically accurate. Like I think but it like feels so modernized to the point where I'm like, what kind of is this? And then it also like the logic in the world doesn't always track because right, like they're trying to like stop the king from being overthrown, but I like didn't even know there was a king. I think it's more about that like the church is using the money that to
Hmm.
for the Crusaders for their opponents.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like again, like why would they really do that? I don't know.
I mean,
I
yeah, in the beginning, I thought the sheriff was like functioning as like a king of some sort.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, and I also was like, I don't know, there was a point where he's like, fear is the church's greatest weapon, that's why we invented hell. And I thought, should I do research into when the concept of hell came about? And I was like, not worth it for
Yeah.
this episode.
That's too much.
Yeah, that's too much. Um, we talked about the aesthetic of this movie because I am obsessed with it in that I'm just like, what is happening? I think that's it's like interesting, but I think it's ultimately it hurts the movie because now I'm thinking about like what people are wearing. Like I don't think I've ever had much of a thought about what the Sheriff of Nottingham is wearing until this movie, you know?
That is true, because like I said earlier, there that moment where he's getting drafted, I was like, did we like go into the future? Like I'm confused. So I think yeah, the overall attire made it very confusing to figure out like where are we in time?
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the questions we usually ask like, do we root for our protagonists? Like, do we root for Robin Hood? And do we ship him and Marian? Um, and well, I think I would start by saying like I do root for him. I do wish he had more emotional range at times, but I think he does have good emotional range. Like even the scene where he turns himself in. I forgot that's how he got captured, where he turns himself in because he sees all the fighting and the like police brutality. He's having war flashbacks. Like I was like, oh, I felt it. I felt that scariness and like what was happening. So I think I do root for him. Um him and Marion to me are like her personality is girlfriend and she cares about people. Like I wish I had a little more from her. I mean, she does things, but like just I don't know, her energy. And I hate
Yeah.
that like she was making her own plots, but eventually at the end it's all just like whatever you think.
hmm Yeah. I think I generally would root for Robin Hood. Although in the film, a lot of his actions felt a little like self-serving, like
Yeah.
it was to make himself feel good about what he was doing. That's just like the impression that I got. But overall, I think when you think about even like what we're experiencing today, not to get political, but you do kind of need people that are willing to be like the face of some type of change
Yeah.
or, so I think in that sense, I definitely rooted for him because I can see the similarities and then and now. So I definitely have to say like I did root for him. Him and Marian on the other hand. I don't know. I feel like not enough time went by from him leaving to her now being in whatever her situationship is with Will.
Yeah.
Um, for like having moved on, I don't know. That's my own personal thing. And um, yeah, I don't know. She didn't give to
Yeah.
me.
No. I do think the lack of historical accuracy actually hurt in that one section because like in olden days, if you were like you couldn't just be like often in many times and places you couldn't just be like a single woman. Like that wasn't
hmm
an option.
Yeah.
So if it was like, oh well, you were dead and I had to remarry or I would be like sent to the convent or like
Yeah.
it tracks, then it makes more sense like why she's with a guy that like she kind of thinks is annoying.
Well, I think overall, that's probably the issue with the film is like there's so many conversations that I feel needed to happen to kind of get us through that we never got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this is coming from just a full-on Marvel guy that just watches action movies and stuff like that. Um, I mean, I was rooting for him. I think, like you guys have stated, I think that last scene where he had the flashbacks and all that, I think he understood how much deeper things were going on and how like the violence that, he was already kind of like had right in front of his face over in where's it called? Because the Arabic, right?
They said they were in
Yeah,
Arabia.
yeah,
Yeah.
in Arabia. It's just like I think he finally understood, hey, you know what? This probably isn't just for my girl. Now it's for everybody, kind of thing. So at that point, he was just like, you know what? If everyone else doesn't get killed, I'm fine with me, dying on the spot right now. So I thought that was like very noble. And I
Yeah.
think that definitely, how can I say it? That's kind of like Dark Knight Returns when he says, you know what? I'm gonna drag this bomb all the way down to the ocean
Yeah.
and I'm gonna blow up with it. So I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't really care for Mariam. Is that how you say it?
Marian, yeah.
Marian? Yeah, I didn't really care for her. She I know she was kind of like the catalyst to everything, but I think it was to the point where I would have wanted him to learn on his own how important things were without her having to speak or like influence or John using her as leverage to kind of like, push out his missions and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but I actually like this character a lot. I thought it was pretty cool. It's very Michael Bayish.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just also I just was because there was a conversation they had at the party where he's like, "Oh, so you like the Hood?" And she's like, "Yeah, like the Hood is a hero, and like he's doing this for stuff, all this stuff for the people." And Will is like, "I'm mad that she likes the Hood." And it's like funny, but I think again, if she had like been like, "Well, why don't you do anything, Robin of Locksley? Like the Hood is great, but like you suck now." That is almost more interesting than just like the cucking like of like of Will just being like "Ooh, like she likes this guy but he's annoying he causes like too much unrest and so I guess he was like set up to be the new antagonist because we asked like what do we think of our antagonist and I like the
Mhm.
sheriff was like to me just like standard bad guy in a suit. I couldn't tell if the cardinal was doing an Italian accent or not. um
Yeah, I felt the same. Like, where's he from?
Yeah, because I'm like, is he supposed to be Italian? Is he? There would be cardinals from England,
Mhm.
so I'm like, is he England? I was just like, but he's coming from Rome. Yeah, but it wasn't a full Italian accent. I was
hmm
just like, still spice.
Yeah, I didn't care for the sheriff. I mean, he's like a copy and paste of any like villain or,
Yeah,
in a film. I didn't care for him. And then um I think I was surprised by the cardinal, but then I was like, the church in this context is kind of a problem or is a problem. So
yeah,
yeah.
I think his backstory was kind of hyping me up to see him kind of see what his final act was, but then it was just basic. So then that's when okay, so he's just like a cookie cutter villain
yeah,
at the end of the day. But like he has intentions. He had like I mean I think his motivation to overthrow the king could have been kind of a little bit more detailed, kind of go back to the backstory again, definitely show the hate he's been bringing you know
yeah,
all those years, but no, they just never touched on it again, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, so you made me feel for him for no reason at that
yeah.
point. So
And there's talk of that like he didn't go to that war.
mhm,
Um, it's just there's also like because Will and the sheriff both talk about like wanting to rise through the ranks, but like that's not something you could really do. Like you couldn't become noble if you were born common. Like that's unless through military service, which the sheriff explicitly has not done. Uh, and so I get it's appealing to. I think they're trying to say something about like the way veterans are treated in our society by like politicians. Um, but yeah, his backstory, like it's interesting, but I'm like, but now I don't really quite get why you are the way that you are, or like you're like, I suffered and I made my way to the top, and I'm just gonna perpetuate the systems, which would be like he's gonna perpetuate the problems that put him in a bad spot, which would be interesting if that was like our hero came from a similar point and is like, actually, I'm using it to help people. But it's
mhm,
actually reversed because like Robin is rich and
mhm,
now he's like working to fight for the poor and the sheriff was poor and is now like stealing from the poor. but I'm like they don't do enough with that contrast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, so the it's up for the time for the big question. So we ask, was that your fantasy? It is a two-part question. Is it an adventure you'd like to live out, and did you like that movie? So I'm gonna start with Krizabeth. Was that your
Uh,
fantasy?
I would say yes and no. Because I think a lot about just like you know, where the time that we're in right now. And just like I think it is a fantasy that you would in some way want to see reality, maybe. Um, but overall, yeah, that's how I feel about it. And then I personally did enjoy the movie despite it being not the best. I think it's kind of like you kind of just go in not expecting it to be good, and then you're just kind of surprised that you are enjoying what you're seeing. But yeah, there were a lot of different holes and whatnot that made it not the best.
Fair, fair. Hobie.
Um, I think in the part would this be my fantasy? I think we kind of already are. We're kind of already in it.
In some way, yeah.
I'm literally waiting to get drafted anytime soon. But I mean, obviously, it's like, he went to go fight a war that he obviously didn't incite, probably doesn't believe in. I'm sure a lot of people are at this time right now too. And, and I guess the fantasy part would be obviously, beat the bad guy and,
Yeah,
you know, finally find some peace, you know, here and in the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess. Yeah. It
Yeah.
it it, it is my reality.
Well, I would say like I think we want to live in a world that where everyone is okay, whether
yeah,
you're rich or poor, like you're living your life
Mhm.
like in the best way that you can. And I just feel like there's a lot of corruptness in that time and today.
yeah,
So I think
Yeah.
it's like the fantasy is like we want people to be free. We want people
Yeah.
to um not have to pay the rich all the time. They have enough
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. I already live in the mines, so I'm just playing. But
the minds of
the mines of South LA. But I mean, overall, I think it was a good movie. It definitely, you know, I think anywhere where the good guy wins, I'm pretty satisfied. I think if I would have bought a ticket in the theater, I would have been pretty much good. Um, like Krizabeth said, you kind of just walk into it not expecting anything. But if it's like a fun watch, I really don't mind it. It kind of sucks that it bombed. I would have wanted to see him beat what's his name? Oh my God,
Jamie
Jesus.
Dorman will.
Yeah, Jamie Dorman. Yeah, I would have
Yeah,
loved to have I don't know why he aimed at the poster. Just aim at his head, dude.
yeah,
I definitely feel like the film had a lot of potential. Um,
yeah,
and there was a point in time where I was like, when they were, I think it's one of the fight scenes where it's like a lot of slow motion that reminded me of, I don't know if you guys saw Rebel Moon, but all of the fight scenes have like slow motion, like dramatics. And I was just thinking when the production team was in the edit booth or just watching this happen, like, did they ever feel like maybe we should go back and fix this? Or, you know, we're missing XYZ or, this isn't
yeah.
hitting like they thought it would. I don't know. I had that feeling a lot during the movie.
For me, I feel like I'm gonna say it's my fantasy in that I want to wear those outfits and save the world and like defeat the bad guy and uh that's a pretty rough, traumatic life, but I think to like, yeah, make an impact,
Hmm.
and help people, I think, and give people hope is like that'd be great. I think, do I like this movie? Now, when I saw it in theaters, I was like, okay, whatever. And then when I saw it this time, I was like, I hate this. I think this is so bad. But there are parts that I still find like interesting. I think it's an interesting movie to look at. And I think some of the casting choices were really smart. Like I think Taran Edgerton is a good choice for Robin Hood.
Mm.
Um, but as I was watching it, things would happen like, this is dumb. Like, I don't know. But when I saw it in theaters, maybe without like the lights and the distraction and noise of like home, I was like fun. So who knows? But I guess it's time for our guest plug. Hobz, you're a huge Twitch streamer. Where can people find you?
I'm not. I'm not. I'm really not. But it's at the Hobs.
And that's
So
on Twitch and TikTok.
so on TikTok there's a period in between. So yeah, you gotta add the period or else you'll never find me. But I think if you just write Hobbs, I usually pop out, I think.
But you're the
But
period Hobz?
yeah,
Okay.
yes. On TikTok, yes, the Hobbs on Twitch. So
Check him out. You know, you've played a ton of different games.
yeah, I mean I'm playing this game called Black Myth Wukong. It's like really heavy on like Chinese lore, like mythology. Um, but it's end of the day, it's like a boss battle game. It's supposed to make you rage. It's supposed to make you, you
Mm.
know, want to put the controller down and, kind of rethink life.
That was me watching this movie. But I'm excited to check out your Twitch and watch you put the controller down and rethink life on
Okay.
live.
I appreciate that.
Krizabeth, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I'm just here for the vibes.
Just here for the vibes. And you know, you can find Not My Fantasy on Instagram and maybe the TikTok at Not My Fantasy Pod. You can find us Apple, Spotify. Please leave a 5-star review if you feel that's true to you in your experience. And leave a comment or a review about like what you like about the pod, just so we know like so more listeners can find the pod, and so people will like so we know what you're looking for and what you like in the pod, and then people looking for the podcast will be like, oh, this is what's fun. You can also follow us on YouTube, subscribe, smash that like button, and hit that bell notification so you know whenever we drop a new episode. And comment below which outfit you would wear in this movie. Um, I feel like I have a better comment below, but
Can I say the one I wanted to wear?
yeah.
You know the one with when he was wearing the black suit with the gold like design on the
Oh,
top
at
of
like
his
the
shoulder?
party.
Yes, that one was really dope. I really
That
like
was
that one.
good.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Um, so hello. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Comment below with your favorite outfit. And you can follow me on Instagram at Cullen Ever After and Blue Sky, Cullen Callaghan. And tune in later this summer for Resistance Summer. We have another Robin Hood episode planned. We'll be talking about the Kevin Costner 1991 Robin Hood. And Once Upon a VHS will be returning to talk about the movie with us. So tune in. It's a long process to release Hannah from Nottingham, but we are podcasting for her life. And the more we learn about Robin Hood, the freer she gets. So Hobz, Krizabeth, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
It was my pleasure.
Okay, okay, Chick-fil-A. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited we can make this happen. And check out his live Twitch streams and TikTok streams. And we'll see you next time back here in Sherwood Forest. Bye, listeners.
Later.